All right. Hello, friends. Let's talk about a tiny section of your website that can actually make a big impact and a big pop. It is right here. It's called the masthead section. You've also seen it called as seen in, or maybe featured by, or trusted by. It's essentially using logos of other companies that maybe you've had featured press, or clients that have trusted you or hired you. It's using their logos to convey a little bit of authority and social proof on your website, and it can really make a big impact quickly and visually without having to, your website visitor having to read a long testimonial. They can, if your website visitor that is showing up has some sort of familiarity with the companies that you are featuring their logos, it can really quickly and easily convey social proof and sort of set you up as an expert that you are in whatever niche, whether it's B2B or B2C, you are serving. So I want to show you today my little trick for how to make this section of your website, these logos, really go from a cluster of trying to, piecemeal a bunch of different companies' logos and their colors into your website and make it look good, and flip it on its head and kind of turn it into what you see here, which is a really clean look. All the logos are the same color. The background of the canvas here is I'm able to use my color in the background. So I want to show you my trick for how to take any logo that you can find on the internet and make it look really good for your website, look good for your brand. That way you can continue to convey the social proof and authority that you want to, but you don't have to sort of piecemeal other people's branding in terms of colors. And if you can't find, say, a PNG image or whatever the case may be, you can essentially create images just like this, and I'm going to show you how. So let's talk about using this logo, okay, using Convertkit. Okay, so if I were to be searching for a logo, which is this is the exact process I did to create that section on my website, the first thing I always search for is if I can find the logo in a PNG form. So let's go to Convertkit, and then I always type in the name of the company itself, and then I put logo, and then I put PNG into the search and hit enter. Awesome. So some images are going to pull, and I want to look at all the images available. Now, you'll know a file is a true PNG if you can see here. If you click on this, they've got these gray and white boxes behind this image, which is that Convertkit icon and Convertkit text itself. That is a true PNG. So if I were to download that, it would make my life really easy. So that's why I always look for PNGs first. You'll see some of these other logos. This one is a blue background. It's a solid color background. Even if it's a solid white or a solid gray color background, those are not true PNGs. It means that if you were to try to put this image in this section, you would have a giant blue box with the Convertkit logo inside. So that's what I'm talking about. That would not look as professionally organized and presentable and visually appealing to the eye to try to put an image like this on your website. Now, I know some people kind of try to do it where they find images that have white backgrounds and then they just put it on a white background on their website, and that is definitely a way that you can do this if you want. But again, then you're working with all of the other company colors and all of that. And if you don't mind that, then great. That's a great option for you. But if you want it to be a little bit more polished and refined, and you get the control over what colors are being shown on your website, this is the trick for you. Now, I just clicked on this one, and this is actually a true PNG image. It's just got multiple colors in the actual file, but I think it's worth working with this one. So I already downloaded this one, so I'm going to pull it up in Photoshop. Now, if you can find a true PNG, this is it in Photoshop. If you can find an image like this that has those gray and white boxes in the background to nod that this is an actual transparent PNG file, this is what you would really love to work with. If that's you, you downloaded it, you open it in Photoshop. All you have to do is double click on the layer itself. And then you've got this layer style pop-up box that's going to appear. To make it happen, you're going to go to color overlay and just click on that phrase, color overlay, right there. And what's going to happen is that a checkbox is going to appear, and it is going to essentially apply a color overlay to this image that you're working with in Photoshop. Now, in order to change the color to whatever color you want, whether it be white, black, or a branded color of your choice, you just click on this little box right here that's showing you what color is currently being overlaid onto the image, and you can change this to anything you want. You can change it to black, you can change it to white, you can change it to a color of your choice, and you can almost see here, you can see the preview that's going on behind the scenes. If I changed it to white, now I've got this white image, and if that's what you want, that's what I used in this circumstance. So it essentially, when you click on color overlay, it doesn't matter how many colors were in this original file. It just overlays the entire layer with the color of your choice. So if that looks good to you, you can go to File and you can go to Export, Save for Web. And then you want to make sure, look, this is like automatically populating a JPEG for me to save. We don't want that, because that would have a white background. You can't even see the logo itself right now, but say you were doing this in navy and you would see that the background is white. That's not what you want, because then you would have a giant white box with a navy logo here, right? So what you want to do is make sure that under preset, you click that drop down. I like to choose PNG 24, and you want to ensure that the transparency is selected. And now you can see that this is a white overlaid logo. If I were to unclick that transparency, you'd be seeing that again, that whole like white box concept. And then you could just click save, and it would be ready to go and pop into your scene in section. So that's if you're working with a PNG already, right? What if we're not working with a PNG? Let me make this Photoshop window a little smaller so you can see my menu. What if you're not working with a PNG though? What if you're working with something like this blue background and it's got multiple colors going on? What do you do then? How do you pull this situation out? This is what I want to show you how to do. So I've already saved this image right here. You can see, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. This is Control Plus on a PC. I'm sure it's Command Plus on a Mac, but I don't have a Mac, so I can't be sure. Right now, you'll see that this is the image that was pulled from Google. So say if you're working with an image that you cannot find a PNG to save your life, you can still do this yourself. First thing you need to do over here, you'll see that this image is actually called an index image. And first thing you got to do is fix that. So I'm going to go up to image with this layer selected. I'm going to go to image, mode, and then, oh, sorry, this keeps clicking on me. Okay, what? Oh my goodness, come on, Photoshop, work with me. Okay, can you do it? Good job. Okay, image, mode, and then right now you'll see it's selected as indexed color. To get rid of this index and this locked background, you've got to go to image, mode, and you can select RGB color if you want. And now you'll see that the index is removed and it's just a background image, but it's still got this lock on it. So once you remove the index, you can double click, and it's going to turn it into a new layer and essentially remove the lock. So if you ever download an indexed image, that's all you have to do is go to image mode and select RGB or CMYK, whatever you want, and then it will get rid of that index, and you can double click on the layer and then get rid of the lock. So what we want to do now is essentially pull out these elements of the logo, so that way we can remove the background and then do the color overlay process to the whole thing. So what you do is you use a tool called your magic wand. It's over here. It looks like a magic wand in your tool dashboard on the left hand side. And what we're going to do is, let's first pull out this this little icon right here. Now, all you do is hover over that section and select it, and you'll see that there's a bounding box that appears around the icon, and we know that that has selected this coral icon. So all you have to do is cut it out of the image. So I'm going to hit Control X to cut, and now you'll see the background is changed, right? Or this image has changed. I pulled the icon out. If I paste the icon back in, Control V, now we've got an icon that's living in its own layer. Awesome. That's exactly what we want to happen. So I'm going to switch to my select tool, and in order to just make sure that this logo looks right, I'm just going to kind of put it back in its place. It doesn't have to be perfect, so don't stress about it. You really just want to get the general positioning that it's supposed to be in. So that is done. We've done the icon, but now we need to select the word Convertkit. So all we do is we pull our magic wand tool. You've got to make sure you're also working with the original image. So go back, make sure you go back and select the original image layer to do this process again. So go to magic wand, and this time we're going to select the sea. Now, just in case if you like click on the white of the sea or whatever, color or icon or word or whatever you're looking for, and it's not selecting everything in that color, like every letter or every element in that color, you might want to come up here and make sure that this contiguous is select or unselected. So if I were to have this selected, I'm going to click on this, and then oh no, we're going crazy. Come on, Photoshop, be cool. Okay, so say I had this contiguous selected. Let's select the C. Now you'll see that the bounding box, I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit for you, but the bounding box is only on the C. And you're like, what? Am I going to have to do this process for every single letter itself? The answer is no. You just need to make sure up here that this is unselected. So now when I click on a white element again, now you'll see that there's a bounding box around the whole word Convertkit. Now, another thing to point out for you is the tolerance of your magic wand. So say your tolerance was set to like 100. Let me click out, and then let me click back over here. If you were to zoom in, you would see that the bounding box is actually pulling now some of the navy in. So when you cut and paste this back in, the letters would have some of the navy attached to it in this instance, and it essentially would just make your letters a little bit more pixelated in the final result. It wouldn't look as clean cut as originally designed. Now, I don't want you to drive yourself crazy here. There are certain instances to do this trick where you're not going to get a perfect cut. For example, this Inspired Retreat logo, I was a speaker there, I think in 2016, so I have this logo on my website. This script font, I had to do this exact same process to get this Inspired Retreat logo to look professional on my website. And the script font I just could not get a perfect cut. It was actually quite pixelated when I cut it out to put a color overlay on it, but because the size of the logo, the final logo size that I'm putting on my website is so small, you couldn't really tell in the end. So don't drive yourself crazy. If you can't get a perfect cut, it's okay, but you can tweak the bounding box essentially and reduce your tolerance. Let's go back to 5. You can reduce your tolerance of your bounding box, and then when you select the color that you want to pull out, you'll see that now my bounding boxes are not going into the navy section of this image. They're more closely tied to the color that I want to pull out of the image, which is the white color. So you can play with it. You can play with your tolerance level to get a better cut if you want to work with that. So same process with the coral icon. You're just going to hit Control X. You're going to cut this out, or Command X, and then you're going to paste it back. And now this is its own layer, the Convertkit word itself. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to do the same little process where I move it back into place so it kind of is as closely related to the original design as possible. And now you can select layer 0 and we can bring it to the trash can. And now we have two different layers because we were working with two different colors. If you were just working with, you know, something like this, if you pulled this image and you did the magic wand tool and selected white, then it would pull all of these elements that are white and you wouldn't have to have two separate layers. But since we're working with a logo that is two different colors right now, that's why we have two layers. So what we want to do is essentially, we want to do the color overlay process for as many layers as you have. We're going to make sure it's whatever color you want. We're going to do white in this case. So now you can just see any imperfections that were pulled out of that navy are now removed. They're now in that white color. We can do the same process for coral. Double click your layer, select color overlay. It's automatically pulling the white color that I used before. And now you have the logo that looks similar to this, right? Like this is obviously a super clean cut version because we were originally working with a PNG. We didn't have to pull any elements out of this image. This is a little bit less of a clean cut version, but when again, as long as you're not putting the logo in a gigantic form on your website, if you're going to go and design it in a way where the logos are smaller in size, it's not going to be a big deal in the end. It'll be okay. But now that we have this image pulled out in the way that we like it to look, you have to do the same process, which is just file, export, and we're going to save it for web, and then you could input it into your website. So that is my trick for pulling out logos for your as seen or trusted by sections and making them on brand to where you can still convey that social proof, but make it look a little bit more professional and clean and fit really well for your website. Hope that was helpful.